go back a long way.
Way back.
And we have the chance to catch up occasionally while he's on his travels. I think we last saw each other when I was out in California. Had a chance to have him at my dining room table where we chatted a little bit about what's going on. So I believe that you'll find him to be a very interesting gentleman. Our class in project management has helped us put together some questions to ask. So we'll look forward to your feedback. If you have an opportunity, they may hopefully be a few moments for some questions from our audience that we don't get a chance to capture. But Ruben is the founder, co-founder, CEO of Career Karma. Has had the chance to raise a few dollars, a few $1 million in the process of setting up and organizing your company. So it is our pleasure to welcome you today. Please join us in welcoming you here to be with us for a few moments. I've talked too much. Tell us a little bit about you, your background, where you're from, even the connection that you might have to Union College.
First, I want to give a shout out to cousin Elijah for hooking it up with the sweater. My grandfather actually graduated from Union College, so my mother's father, and so that's the connection to Union College. But I was born in California, where we recently met. Loma Linda. Moved to Atlanta when I was one. That's where I was raised. I went to Southern Adventist University, actually. I did a double major, business administration and music there. Started my career in investment banking in Chicago. Then I went back to Atlanta. Then I moved to Silicon Valley, did about 3 different startups before I applied for Y Combinator, which is the world's largest accelerator. Has anybody heard of Y Combinator before? Good.
Maury.
Good. Y Combinator. Have you heard of Airbnb? Dropbox? Stripe? DoorDash? Yeah, so that's essentially the program that created all of those organizations. Is this mic on?
That's a recording mic, but
okay.
Speak up so they can.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, so essentially, it's harder to get into this program than Stanford. Essentially, there's 2 batches every year, and when you apply to get in, they essentially give you $500,000, and then they essentially train you to raise a bunch of money and start the organization. So essentially, we went through that program, went to 2019, started Career Karma after I worked in education, healthcare, and politics, and then we raised a bunch of money, and that's where we are today.
All right, now, I'm not sure that I heard in there that you necessarily have a tech background, business major, music major, but Career Karma seems to be related to the tech world somehow. Tell us what gave you the idea that you were going to start up a tech company without a tech background.
Yeah, so if you want to start a technology company, you will need to have somebody on your team that has an engineering background. So I met my co-founders in investment banking. None of us knew how to code. My brother didn't know how to code. So we discovered that there's these programs called coding boot camps. Have you heard of a coding boot camp before? So essentially they're accelerated programs where you go in there for 3 months and they train you to be a software engineer in a short amount of time. So my brother, for example, he signed up. In 5 months, he's making $150,000. So, and they teach you how to code. When we found out that you can go to these training programs without having to go to college, or even if you went to college, and you can get a job that's making 6 figures in a short amount of time, we were wondering why a lot of the world didn't know that existed. So essentially, Career Karma was created to match people to job training programs, and those job training programs started paying us to help people get in there, and even colleges pay for this. And so we essentially did that, and we raised about $52 million to match people to job training programs. But from day one, we've always wanted to support people for the rest of their career. So now we're actually working with large corporations to match employees' career ambitions to company objectives and provide the talent development to make sure that they can grow into managers and leaders and become leaders that build leaders as well in the future.
You mentioned, investment banking as one of your experiences. What would you say were the key, the instrumental things that prepared you for your role? Investment banking, college background, what would you say were the ingredients that went into prepping you for what you do?
Have you guys heard of a blog called Mergers and Inquisitions? Yep. So I started studying mergers and acquisitions. There was a course called Breaking into Wall Street. Has anybody taken that course? So Breaking into Wall Street will teach you financial modeling, how to make PowerPoint presentations, all these things. So I didn't even know what investment banking was when I was in college. So his brother actually told me about investment banking. And essentially I did 233 spreadsheets, 63 videos, and I taught myself financial modeling to get into investment banking. And I blogged my whole journey, which led to 7,000 people asking how to get into investment banking and me helping them get into.
They were asking you?
They were asking me.
Okay.
After I got in, they were asking me how to get into investment banking. And that's when I started understanding the power of media and telling your own story and your identity. When people Google your name, something's gonna pop up. So when I moved to Silicon Valley, I did something similar. So when we got into tech, I wrote a story about it called Breaking IntoStartups. And that turned into a podcast that reached 3 million people and led to people coming, asking for career advice, and to this day is still continuing to give career advice.
Okay. Not that Career Karma is not an interesting job, but tell us about the investment banking life a little bit. That's portrayed as kind of a glamorous go-to job for business graduates that many should aspire to. How was your experience in investment banking? How did it go? What you enjoy about it? What was challenging? Would you recommend it as a career option? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, how many hours a week you think is a hard work week? How many?
Depends whether you enjoy it or not.
Well, let's say you enjoy it. How much is a hard work week?
If you're owning it, love it. 80.
Yeah, 80. What is that, 60? Yeah, so you're doing about 80 to 100 hour weeks. So for 3 years straight. And it sounds crazy, but it's not. If you actually think, like she said, if you love it, if you understand what you're doing it for, you're not gonna, even when you love something, there's gonna be things about it that you don't like. Like even with the cello, right? There's pieces my teacher would tell me, he would be like, hey, you're gonna learn this piece. I said, I don't like that. And he said, Ruben, nobody cares what you like. You know, there's utility in everything. Find the value in, where you're learning this piece for a reason. So there's gonna be certain things like scales or arpeggios or music history that we were talking about the other day that I really didn't appreciate in order to learn these things. So long story short, yeah, we did 80 to 100 hour weeks in about 3 years. And during that time period, you're gonna learn how many people are at business administration majors? Business administration? Yeah, okay, cool. So I was a business administration, emphasis in finance. And so you're gonna learn a lot about business. You're gonna learn how to make presentations. I can make, a 100-page pitch book in half a day. Easy, no problem, polished, no format. So you're gonna learn how the value of an hour. So if it's 24 hours in a day and 7 days a week, that's 168 hours. So if you think about that, 80 hours a week, you still got 88 hours left, right? Even if you sleep 40 hours a week, you still got 48 hours left. That's still more than a 40-hour work week available. So we actually do have a lot of time. So in reality, 20 or 40-hour weeks is actually not really that much, right? So I'm not advocating for unhealthy lifestyles either, but I do think that if you want to achieve something, because I personally know a lot of these founders that have created big companies, they work that normally. So something to keep in mind.
Got a couple of partners that you started your company with. How did you meet them? And how did you determine these are some guys that I want to connect with and trust with and build an organization together with? How did you make that determination?
How many people have heard of OpenAI? So Sam Altman's brother, Jack Altman, was also an investment banker. And so Jack and Archer, we were all in investment banking together. And Jack Altman went on to do a coding boot camp and then started $1 billion company called Lattice that you might have heard of. And the Archer, he's a musician as well. So he plays the accordion. He was also buying and selling art. So when we met in investment banking, we were just talking about art the whole time, and it was a really awesome conversation. He said, guess what? I said, what? He said, I have a twin brother. And his twin brother was across the street. He was at Auto Trader at the time, but none of us knew how to code. So Sam Altman had actually a course that you guys can look up today called How to Start a Startup. So look up How to Start a Startup, and it's free online, and it literally breaks down courses from really well-known people. And we found out that somebody had to know how to code. So what they say, if you want to create a $1 billion company, you have to write code and talk to users. I'm not a $1 billion company yet, but our company is currently valued at $380 million. And if you want to create a $1 billion company, you have to write code and you have to talk to users, right? Write code, talk to users. But if nobody knows how to code, then that's a problem. So they decided that they were going to be the coding guys, and I was going to be the talk to users person. I was going to be the person that sells, raises the money, and does all those things. And so, yeah, that's how I met them.
All right. Now,
and we were in Atlanta, Georgia at the time. And then I bought a one-way ticket to San Francisco. I had a place to live for 1 month. And then 3 weeks later, I found a job and then wrote that Breaking IntoStartups story, and that's how it started.
Okay, cool. Right now, your role CEO.
Yeah.
That's your official title. What does a CEO do? What do you do with your time? What are your roles? What are the skill sets? You've talked about your background a little bit, but what are the skill sets that you need to do in the roles that you carry out now? So kind of describe what your day, your month is like. What do you think the important skill sets you need to be successful at what you're doing now to sustain your skills and to sustain your company?
So we're in Omaha. Anybody heard of Warren Buffett? What's his number one rule?
Don't lose money.
Bingo. Don't lose money, right? So as a CEO, rule number one is don't die. Never run out of money. Always make sure you have enough runway so you can survive. If you don't, you gotta go, cockroach mode, right? And so that's rule number one. So as a CEO, you gotta make sure that you're either raising the money, make sure you have enough runway, that you're selling, you're always making sure money's coming through the door. That's number one. Number two, you're hiring and firing. Hiring the right people, firing the wrong people. You are setting the vision, making sure that while you are building for today, you're holding on to what's going on in the future. You are maintaining the culture, and then some form of marketing and investor relations. That's pretty much the job.
Raising money. Let's talk about that a little bit. We got your bio. We put a little number in there that talked about how much you raised. I've seen Shark Tank before. I don't know if that relates in any way to what you do. Tell us how you find folks with money and how you convince them that they need to put it in your company. What's that process like, and how do you put together what you put together? Describe kind of how you go from the genesis of that to walking away with somebody saying, yeah, we're ready to write you a check for a few million.
Yeah. I was talking to Elijah about this earlier. I think Shark Tank is helpful to get an intro to what's going on, but it's more Hollywood, and it's not always a reflection of what it really is like. So it is like that, but it's important to not be in it just to make money. So you really want to think about problems that exist in the world that you personally have either experienced or know more about than anybody else, right? And ideally, that problem that you personally have or that somebody else has is something that's felt by a lot of people. And you want to essentially create a solution to solve that problem using software. And ideally, that problem is a frequent problem, because anytime that problem is happening and they push the button to use your product to solve the problem, you make money when they push the button, right? So it's a combination of having the story, positioning it right, being able to launch as well. So you can't just have a story. You want to be able to launch something. So if you're applying to somebody, you have to actually have something that exists. If you're pitching me and you're saying, oh, if you give me money, I'll be able to build it. But if you can't show me that you're building it yourself before you ask me for money, do you really care about it? Do you really care about it? Somebody has to be technical on the team. requirement. You don't have to be making money whenever you are launching. And then it's not just important to have somebody that's technical on your team. A big question that they're going to ask you is, how do you know each other? And one of the best ways to have a co-founder that you know is people that you met here in school. So if this is a business department, spend a lot of time in the computer science department or in the design department or in the data science department, because you need somebody technical that's going to be on your team. And ideally, it's a co-founder relationship is like a marriage, right? It's very rare that you're going to see someone that just blindly got married and survived, right? There has to be something that's tying you that's deeper than love. And similarly, there has to be something that ties you deeper than money. Why? 60% of companies die because of co-founder blow up. It's arguing, right? So your heart has to be in it, your relationship with your people matters, and a lot of times the company is going to bet on who you are, because a company is almost never its first product, right? Think about Coca-Cola, think about Nintendo, think about Toyota, think about Tesla, right? They started off with one car, and now they got Cybertrucks, right? So your idea is eventually going to be something different. So in the beginning, they're betting on you, your team, your clarity of thought, and are you the best person in the world to do this? So, yeah.
So let's see. Tell us if I'm looking to raise a few $1 million, do I go to I'm going to date myself. Do I go to the yellow pages? Do I Google it? How do I find these people that are willing to offer money? Where are they? Who are they? And how do I get to them?
Who knows what a venture capitalist is? What is it?
Somebody who like invests in startups.
Yep. So it's people that give you money. And so think about a venture capitalist as someone that has convinced universities like Union College, governments, family offices to give them, let's call it $100 million. So then you have a general partner and associates that are there that are essentially responsible for giving entrepreneurs money. So whenever you have thought about the problem that you want to solve, let's say it's in healthcare, so I've been health outside, there's venture capitalists that want to see healthcare ideas that change the world. Let's say you want to cure cancer. Okay, cool. Well, there's going to be investors that really focus on funding you to cure cancer, right? The thing that's important to keep in mind is their job is to give away money, right? All you have to do is give them a reason to give you the money. There's literally trillions of dollars that exist out here if you say the right things to the right people at the right time. It's just like a job. They want to hire you if you can do the work, right, and fit the bill, right? So venture capitalists, how do you find them? You could go through an accelerator like Y Combinator. That's not the only one. There's Teal Fellowship, there's 500, you're probably not gonna do Teal Fellowship. Teal Fellowship encourages you to drop out of college and they give you money. Then there's 500 startups, there's Techstars, there's all kinds of things like that. But even if you don't go any accelerator at all, you can go to just the venture capitalists directly. There's top venture capitalists like Andreessen Horowitz and Sequoia and Excel, but you have to do your research because there's a bunch of them. But just understand venture capital. Just Google top venture capitalists in Silicon Valley. But they also exist everywhere. There's probably people here that will give you money, but it's really focused on venture. So that means like seed stage, Series A, Series B. You got to understand all these terms. And honestly, investment banking really prepared me for the financing language. You got to understand border control and all kinds of stuff like that, safe notes. But that's why some of these accelerator programs really help you. If you want to know how to structure a pitch, I encourage you to check out Sequoia Business Plans. Sequoia is the #1 venture capital firm. And they have a whole breakdown of like how to make a pitch. And there's a good video by Jim Getz called Think Big, Start Small that really explains how to structure your presentation. But one of the best ways to get to venture capitalists is to make friends with other CEOs, right? So let's say that, there's startups that you're inspired by or apps that you use. Anybody, what apps do you use on a daily basis outside of Instagram and social media? What do you guys use? Spotify, okay, cool. Anybody else? Duolingo, that's a good one. Anybody else? So would you? Yeah, I know you guys use apps. It's cool though. But like, so you want to reach out to like the CEOs of these companies.
All right, that's a big ask right there. I want to reach out
to the CEO,
CEO
of the company. That's not a big ask.
Are they going to talk to me? Do I get their cell phone?
Depends on how you write the email.
So you reach out to CEOs?
Yes.
They respond to you?
Yes.
So how do you get CEOs
when I moved to
you?
Silicon Valley, I knew 0 people. 0. But now I am on a first name basis. That's Daniel is his name, the CEO of Spotify, right? So it's like there's ways to meet these people. You could even leverage Twitter. You could DM them. You could jump in the conversation, right? Toby, CEO of Shopify. You talk to them, like Parker, Rippling, like. And what happens is, once you get to know people, you're not trying to get them to do anything for you. You're just trying to get to know them on a regular basis. Like I will organize ski trips or snowmobiling trips or whitewater rafting trips. And what happens is, once they get to know you and they know that you have an idea, they can talk about you when they're checking in with their investors. So then after they're done with their board meeting, they might say, what's your name?
Me?
Yeah.
Mari.
Mari?
Mari. Yeah.
Mari. So they might be like, hey, my buddy Mari, he's actually about to raise a seed round and he's building something in this space. You might want to check him out. And one of the things that VCs, venture capitalists, don't like is to be missing out. So you want to create FOMO. You want to create a competition. Yeah, my friend Maury, he's been talking to a bunch of investors. I know he's about to close his round. You might want to check him out. And what happens when that happens is they reach out to you, right? So like you create your own process, but you always want to control your process just like your job interview.
One of the things I think you mentioned briefly is that in addition to raising funds, you have a cycle of needing to stay relevant and change.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what you envision your company to be when you first started it, and how you've had to respond to changes due to internal or external forces that have impacted you? So if you could talk about the evolution of your company a little bit.
Yeah. How many of you all feel confident entering the job market today? Good. How many people are, why this?
I've entered the job market at one point again in graphic design, and it didn't go very well. So,
Yeah.
There's always that trepidation.
I think most people are feeling like that right now. It's not just because of the job market. It's more of the world is changing everywhere. Like across the board, it's completely being reinvented because of AI. Not just blue collar jobs, white collar jobs, companies themselves are being reinvented. And if you are not riding the wave, you're gonna get hit by it and you're gonna get swept, right? And so to answer his question, my pitch in the beginning was, we help people that want to become software engineers by matching them to coding boot camps and giving them support for the rest of their careers. So that was like my narrow focus. That was like my one-liner. When I was in Y Combinator, it evolved and said, Career Karma helps job training programs find qualified applicants. So that expands beyond just boot camps. We're starting with coding boot camps. They pay us 10% of tuition, so anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 per enrollment. That was like my pitch. 375 million workers are going to switch careers between now and 2030 because of AI and automation, blah, 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 right? And that's essentially what got us to raise $1.5 million, then $10 million led by Initialized. So Alexis Ohanian, who's Serena Williams' husband, and Gary Tan, who's now the president and CEO of Y Combinator, they led our Series A. Gary Tan's on our board. And then we raised $40 million. And that's essentially what got us up to this point. So to answer his question, boot camps have been the thing, right? Boot camps have been going great. Online education went crazy because of COVID, actually, part-time, self-paced work. But then after 2021, venture capital world dried up. So for perspective, 2021, there was $23 billion in venture capital that went into the education technology market. Guess what it was last year, globally? Less. $3 billion for the whole world to get venture. So what does that mean? What I said, what was rule number one? Don't die, right? Don't die. So what that means is boot camps, which are the people that we match people to get trained so that they can get into technology jobs, they got to stay alive. And what's the best way to stay alive as a company if you're the CEO? What do you got to do? How many people want to be a CEO one day? Okay, what do you got to do if you got to control costs? Guess.
Keep cash.
Keep cash. How?
Lower expenses to quick people.
Yep. Cutting people is one way. What else?
Just, I don't know, shifting and cutting other expenses.
Yeah. So usually most of the money is going towards, like you said, payroll, like who you've hired, and also paid marketing. So because there was so much money going into the ecosystem between 2020 and 2023, people got addicted to the paid marketing drug. That's it. They said 40 cents of every dollar raised by venture capital went to Google and Facebook for paid marketing. That's how it was, including us, right? And so we were really growing. And then the schools, the boot camps that essentially pay us for people that are qualified to get into their training programs, if they're in cost cutting mode, they have to control their expenses, right? So they didn't completely cut their marketing budget because they have to enroll students into their program, but they controlled the amount of money that they're spending on marketing so that they can go organic. So what does that mean? That means that my revenue just stayed flat or slightly grow based off of their growth because boot camps don't have the same infrastructure as colleges, right? So even though we still have the boot camp business going, I had to figure out how to go into a market that I can control. Also, in the boot camp world, college enrollment has also dropped since COVID hit, right? So colleges and boot camps are not fully prepared for the AI wave, right? Companies themselves aren't ready for the AI wave. Everybody's trying to figure it out. So everybody's kind of in this standstill, trying to see what's going on. And everybody's starting to pivot towards the B2B side of things, the enterprise side of things. And on December of last year, Michael Seibel, anybody play Twitch? Or watch Twitch? The CEO of Twitch is one of our first investors. It's a black man named Michael Seibel, sold his company for $1 billion. He talked to me December of last year, and he said, name one education technology company that makes $1 billion in revenue. Can anybody name an education technology company that makes $1 billion in revenue? The answer is pretty much zero. There's one, right? What's the problem with that? You know what the problem with that is? If you're in the venture capital game, the way it works is they want to invest in companies that can return the fund. Meaning that when they invest in you, all of the investments can fail, but one investment should be able to return the entire thing. So, for example, Gary Tan, who's on my board, he was the first check in Coinbase. That check turned into $2 billion, right? He was also the first check in Instacart, but turned into a lot of money too. first check in Rippling, and so on, his first check in Cruise, right? All these things. And so by investing early, they get rewarded a lot of money later, right? And so I say all this because pretty much everyone in our space is trying to figure out how to go into enterprise because the game has changed. The standards have gone up. When I was in Y Combinator, it was all about how do you get to 100 million in revenue? Because the quick and dirty valuation exercise is a 10x revenue multiple. I know I'm getting a little jargony. So it's like, if you make 100 million, 10x revenue multiple, $1 billion company. It's not like that anymore. $1 billion is not that much anymore. You got a 10 billion, 100 billion. That's what you're going for. And it's not about, I know I said it's not about money. It's not about money. Bigger problems, what I was telling you yesterday, if you're solving a big problem, then you're gonna, as a result, make a lot of money, right? So so if I'm focusing on boot camps, even if I got all of the boot camp business, if it's a 500 million in revenue market, I can't make $1 billion in revenue outside of that, right? Because I'm getting a fraction of it. So long story short, to answer his question, from day one, we haven't just been about helping people get jobs. We've wanted to have to support them for the rest of their career. So I had to figure out how to not only go after a market that can generate $1 billion in revenue, but also become an AI company and build an AI technology from the ground up. So right now, we are building an AI companion that helps people navigate their career, matching them with coaches as well inside of companies, and providing visibility for the C-suite to know how to support them, and essentially creating a performance management and talent development platform. And that's what the next 5 years are gonna look like. So it's a new journey, but I'm still have over half of the money that we have. We have over 5 years runway, which is a blessing to be in, but it's a really weird position because essentially I gotta reinvent the business. It feels like I'm doing it all over again. This is the longest job I've ever had. This is our 6th year that we're going into it. But I have to, and the reason why I have to go for higher waters is I have to, if I raise another round, which if I do, I'm gonna be shooting for a $100 million round, I have to raise at a higher valuation. And in order to do that, I have to be performing greater. All right, so I'll pause on that, yeah.
Cool. Talked about going to higher waters. Reminded me of our title, How to Swim with Sharks.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about the competitive environment that you live in, that you work in, and trying to stay alive. Seems like you got a lot of forces out there that can be stressors to try to say, hey, if I don't get this done today, I may not be around. I think about your background. You went to school called Southern. I imagine there was a component of some education that talked about ethics there. We try to include that in our education here. Have you been challenged on any ethical front in your work, and what would you say has helped to provide a base of standards for you, your core values that you've tried to hold on to as you've tried to navigate through the challenges that you face in the business world?
I mean, the cool thing about running your own business is you could essentially be you, right? So I don't shy about the fact that I'm Adventist. I don't shy about, I'm very vocal about God. My co-founders don't believe in God, but we still get late. They were raised Jewish, and so they still respect the Sabbath. And things like that. So I never had issues in that regard. So that's been one of the coolest things I think about running my own organization. I could run into problems with investors if I chose the wrong investors. I'm aware of people that are sharks. I'm aware of things that are said behind my back, but also know how to play the game, because you do got to know how to play the game because the world is small. But I've never had any ethical issues. I would say the things that probably are the most frustrating things that I've had to deal with are firing people. I don't like firing people.
What necessitated you needing to lay people off or to fire them? Different situations?
Overhiring. So like I had 300 people working for me. So when I raised the money, we grew from 60 to 300 in a year. And it was interesting because when I raised 1.5 million and I was raising the 10, I had only spent $500,000, so I still had $1 million left. And they were like, oh, wow, you're so capital efficient. Then when I was raising the 40, I had only spent $3 million out of the $10 million that I raised. And they were like, wow, you only spent a little bit. So the question during the Series B was, if we give you $40 million, what will happen if you spend all of it in 3 years? What would you get if you spend all of it in 3 years? So we created this plan to like really be aggressive, hiring and doing all these things. But while we're doing all that, the whole market changed. I spent $16 million in 1 year. Yeah. And not a lot to show for it, all right? And so I had to adjust. And when you adjust like that, it hurts because you have to say goodbye to people that you care about that have been with you from day one, right? Because like this is like your heart and soul, you know? And then some people understand it and some people don't. And the people that don't sometimes react in a way that you didn't expect them to react like. And then you have to, yeah, it's not a nice situation. So, but you learn why people say firing people is expensive. It's not just because of the money. Money it's definitely expensive when you gotta deal with certain things, but it's definitely psychologically expensive.
I'm gonna we're out of time, but we have time for 2 brief questions and a couple of brief responses. So I wanted to give our audience an opportunity to provide some questions. It looks like Ingrid has a question.
Ruben, I want to say thanks for being here. Now, reading. Do you like to read?
A lot of books. I'm really into biographies right now. So Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, CEO of Nike, Ride of a Lifetime by Iger, Sam Walton, Made in America, also very good. I'm currently reading a book. I'm reading Elon Musk's book by Walter Isaacson is really good. That just came out. Becoming Steve Jobs is really good. Not the Walter Isaacson version. Becoming Steve Jobs is really good. And then I'm also reading a lot of fiction. So I'm reading Clara and the Sun right now, which is about solar-powered AI companions and how they work with humans. I like classic books like Fountainhead. I read like 2 to 4 books a month. So I have a very long list of books. So I'm happy to give.
Any other questions?
I have a question. So a lot of these kids that are feeling like that, going out into the market, and they want to be a leader, but they don't necessarily have the confidence to just go right out into it. When they're thinking about who to apply to, even for an internship,
Mm-hmm.
how do they research and what should they ask to know they're getting into a good company with a good CEO that has good management and good morals and values their employees?
My answer to that will be focusing on themselves first. So the first thing that a lot of times people let's say that somebody comes to Career Karma and like, hey, I want to learn how to code. The first thing they ask them is like, why do you want to learn how to code? Or why do you want to do cybersecurity? If you don't know why you want to do that, it's going to be hard for you to find which companies you want to work for. Because what tends to happen is when people go in the market, they just want to get a job with Google or Facebook because they'll pay them a lot of money. But like, there's so many other companies that exist. So you got to really think about, what do you care about? It's like what I was talking about with him yesterday. I was like, are you passionate about soccer? Are you passionate about, music? Are you passionate about this or that? It's like, what are you passionate about? That, like you said, you told me before, what do you love that you could just work for free if they gave you the job, right? Once you do that, then you want to create a list of 100 companies that fit that thesis. Start with Y Combinator. Y Combinator has 14,000 alumni, right? That alone will give, there's already a filter there. It's harder to get into Y Combinator than Stanford and Harvard. They've been vetted. You can see all their descriptions publicly. They just did demo day yesterday. So there's a ton of companies. And email 5 people a day on that list. Cold email them, don't apply on the website. Don't go to the recruiter. Email the CEO. Email whoever's in charge. And don't just say, hey, I want a job. Like, you might have read something in the news about them, and then you're gonna ideally identify something that they're trying to figure out, and you're gonna present yourself as that person that can figure it out for them. And I promise you they'll respond if you can help them figure that out. That's what I would do.
Well, I think our time has arrived
No more questions.
to wrap up.
No more questions.
He'd love to answer one more question.
One more question.
He's asking for one more question. There's a line up outside from a union student.
Okay.
Young man,
So you mentioned that you are very God-centered,
Uh-huh.
and what has been your biggest challenge with your investors in a sense that you may have some impasse with them, or how did you talk them within it?
I've never had any challenges. If anything, I've actually had investors coming to me asking me how I could help them invest in religious technology companies. So my brother actually has a really cool idea for a religious technology company. So if you guys have religious technology ideas that you want to build, I have people that want to give you money. But I'm sure some people do. And the way that I would handle it is the same way that I handled it in investment banking. I just don't work on Sabbath. And then I do more work. I work on Sunday to make up for what I didn't do on Saturday. That's it.
you get the last word, sir. Anything you want to tell us? We're going to the job market. We're trying to get ready. What do we need to do coming from Union College to hit the ground running?
We have a program with Google called Black Genius Academy that is giving away free certificates to learn how to code and design and things like that. So that's more of a DEI type program. In general, if you want to just get training, you can just go to careerkarma.com. Happy to support you. My email is ruben@careerkarma.com. I think you guys should focus on your story more than anything, because if you think about it, if you're applying for a hot company, everybody can do the job. So if everybody can do the job, why would they hire you? Anybody know?
That's for who you are as a person.
Bingo. That's it. You guys are all unique. You guys have spiritual gifts that God gave you that nobody else has. Learn how to tell that story, and that's going to carry you through everything. Cool.
All right.